Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First thing I would like to do is introduce our new commissioner, Charles Borchini, Jr. Welcome. Sure. Yeah.
Thanks,
Cheryl, can you please take roll call?
Freihofer,
Here.
Bright,
Yes.
Borchini. Tao.
Yes.
Next, we'll have the approval of the regular meeting minutes of September 2nd, 2025. If there's not any corrections or addition, I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes and a second.
I move to approve the minutes from September 2nd.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. Cheryl, will you take the vote?
Tao.
Yes.
Freihofer.
Yes.
Bright, you were absent, and Borchini wasn't here yet, so that's it.
Next, we'll have public participation. There's no limit to the number of speakers, although public comments will be held to an overall time of 30 minutes. Speakers have a time limit of 3 minutes per person, may only speak once, and may not cede time to another commenter. Please remember that the commission cannot respond directly to public comments. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in the public comment period? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next, item 4, we'll have public hearings. First public hearing, Resolution number 11, Series 2025, a conditional use permit presented by Jason Armstrong, Interim Director of Community and Economic Development, Cortez City Planner. Jason?
Good evening, Commission. Give me a second here to get set up. I do not see that coming up. Can you guys see my presentation on your screens? No. All right, great. Okay, so this evening we bring before you a conditional use permit for a metal carport in the front setback of property located at 1540 Arrowhead Lane. Patricia Mancuso is requesting a conditional use permit to construct the metal carport over her driveway, which will encroach into the required front setback of 10 feet. This property has commercial zoning, and the site is bound on all sides by commercial zone properties, all having a primary residential use. This application will also require a special exception or minor deviation be applied to the conditional use permit for the purpose of addressing the carport roof, which must be constructed in such a manner to appear as part of the original construction of the principal structure per section 3.0642DI of the Land Use Code. As you'll see in the presentation, I've provided a graphic of the standards, development standards. You can also see that the one that needs to be addressed, the front setback, requires the CUP. I provided you with the code, describes the accessory carport and the need for the conditional use permit. I've also provided you with some conditional use permit conditions and some decision-making criteria. Also providing you the section 5.012 of the Land Use Code, which speaks to the special exception, minor deviation that can be applied to this application. General discussion, the city right-of-way extends approximately 3 feet from the back of the sidewalk, and the applicant has indicated they will construct the carport to eliminate this conflict. This project has considerations for the required vision clearance triangle created at the intersection of the driveway and the street. The carport is open-sided to the height of 7.3 feet of ground clearance as designed. I noted that a gas line utility easement may be required, and the applicant reached out to Atmos, and they indicated that there was no conflict there. Provided you with some pictures from the applicant of where the carport will be and what it will be constructed of. We did get some agency comments. The right-of-way that Public Works indicated, that's being addressed by the applicant. And then Atmos Energy indicated there was no need for an easement for a gas line. So the alternatives for you guys tonight, the commission can recommend that the council approve the conditional use permit for a carport in the front setback on property located at 1540 Arrowhead Lane in the commercial zone, as submitted by Patricia Mancuso. The commission can recommend denial of the application for the conditional use permit and site development plan and state its reasons. The commission can ask for more information and continue hearing to a date certain, or it can table the application, or the commission can recommend that council approve the conditional use permit and state any conditions it feels would be necessary to ensure compliance with the land use code. Staff recommends alternative 4, approval of the conditional use permit through Planning and Zoning Resolution number 11, Series 2025. 2 conditions. The first one is all requirements of utility providers, city departments, CDOT, and affected districts must be satisfied. And the second is the appropriate construction drawings and reports for the project must be approved by the building official and a building permit obtained prior to any construction on the site. With that, that ends my presentation to you guys on this. The applicant is here if you have any questions for her.
Are there any questions for staff before we move on? Questions? Would the applicant like to make a presentation or to discuss this? Could you please go to the podium over there?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I was hoping for this carport because I want this to be my final house, and this would help me to not shovel so much snow at 70, and I've had knee surgery in the summer. One time I went in my car, it was 108, and I had a heat stroke at 17. So that would help my everyday quality of life. I want to put it where it is because I have had homeless people come up Hartman Draw and try my back gate and around the front of the house. So where it is, where I'm proposing it, I can, if I hear a noise, I can get up and look out my bedroom window and see under that roof and see the car if anybody's messing around. What else? I don't know. And I also have macular degeneration, so I would love that carport to be close to my walkway up to the house. And gosh, that's all I can think of except to apologize that I didn't know I needed a permit. But my neighbor told me, and then that's how we got it rolling.
The commission have any questions for the? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this item? Seeing none, it's back to the commission. The staff has a recommended motion there before you, but is there any discussion first?
I just,
Maybe for Jason, all of the issues you had have been resolved, correct?
Yes, sir.
No more questions.
Charlie?
and according to the plan, it's going to be metal, correct? Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? The chair is looking for a motion.
Well, let's all now race to it, huh? All right. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve Resolution Number 11, Series 2025, a resolution recommending that City Council approve the conditional use permit for a carport on property located at 1540 Arrowhead Lane in the Commercial C Zone as submitted by Patricia Mancuso through P&Z Resolution Number 11, Series 2025, with the following conditions. All requirements of utility providers, city departments, CDOT, and affected districts must be satisfied as outlined in adopted city codes and other regulatory documents. Specifically, all public improvements shall comply with the minimum requirement of the 2009 City of Cortez Construction Design Standards and Specifications. And also, the appropriate construction drawings and report for the project must be approved by the building official and building permit obtained prior to any construction on site.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? A second. It's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cheryl, could you call the question?
Fryhofer,
Yes.
Tao,
Yes.
Borchini,
Aye.
and I didn't hear who seconded.
I did.
You did? Okay, thank you.
Cheryl, you didn't ask for my vote?
Bright,
Yes. Okay. Next item, resolution number 9, Series 2025, presentation of Proposition 123 by Nancy Dosdall.
Good evening and welcome, Charles. This is a request for a code revision, and I'm going to go over a little bit more background than I even have maybe in the staff report, because I'm realizing this might be pretty new to Charles. Charles, wave your hands if I'm boring you or you don't know or you have questions or I'm going into too much detail. But Proposition 123 was adopted by the electorate a couple of years ago, I think 2023, maybe 2022, which is a proposition that includes funding for affordable housing. It's administered through the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, or DOLA as we call it, and it allowed communities to either opt into the requirements or not opt in. The city of Cortez opted in, and Proposition 123 opt-in means that the city committed to developing, encouraging, trying to get developed affordable housing in our community, a certain percent. And I'm not sure I have the details here. So the city opted into that. Last year, the state adopted, or this year actually, new requirements for those communities that opted in to Proposition 123, which says that we need to put in place a guaranteed expedited approval process for affordable projects. It's required that we get that adopted by January 1st of 2027. Did I say it must guarantee approval or denial within 90 days of a complete submittal to the city of an affordable project? I'll go over some of the more details as we go on. The state, however, has added some incentives to that to get early adoption from communities, so that if we get these amendments adopted by the end of this year, December 31st, 2025, the city will be eligible for a $50,000 grant from DOLA, no match required, and there's broad uses for that grant, all of which the city has plenty of reason to want to speed this adoption process through. So we're pushing it forward in front of you. Just for the record, the city already has a fairly fast process. There's just nothing in the code right now that guarantees that fast process. And I did check the most recent review of an affordable project, which was Housing Solutions for the Southwest. I think they had a fourplex. Anyway, some townhome units. It was approved in 53 days from complete submittal through Planning Commission and City Council. However, to make sure that we're eligible for the additional grant fundings and to make and not knowing how future staff members might process applications or how busy the city would get, we've prepared for you some code amendments that would guarantee and be compliant with the state process. I've got some revisions in front of you that I dropped off tonight because, as you'll see with the document titled Memorandum Fast Track Courtesy Review, we got comments back from the state this morning on whether or not the process would comply with all their requirements. I guess the good news is it says required revisions for compliance, no required revisions identified. They said that the draft policy we have in front of you does meet all statutory requirements, but they do have a couple of changes that I'm going to go over as I go over the process. The memo that was sitting in front of you printed has some red lines in it. If you were to decide to recommend those red lines, we believe we would be fully compliant with the state's process or requirements. So anyway, the idea here is that we would actually add a new section to the code, 3.07, which would be entitled Incentives. And the idea here is it's an incentive. There's more than just the fast track that would apply to only affordable housing projects that meet the code requirements. We'll go over here. Just to help understand the reasoning here, we kind of thought that the idea of having this separate section with incentives would allow you in the future maybe to include other types of development that also might be eligible for the incentives. So, for example, if you decided that commercial development that created a certain number of jobs, you wanted to do a fast track process for that, you could add that into this section. So anyway, that's why we thought it might be easiest, or it might be a good idea to do an incentives section. So it goes over the incentives that are available, and the way we've drafted it, it's only available to affordable housing projects. And here it does say that, like 307.2, that we would not include any incentives that don't comply with the code. So in other words, they have to meet the requirements, and any other development would, but there's a few things that would allow them to get somewhat preferential treatment, I guess. So Based on state requirements, they have to say that you can decline the incentives. You're not forced to go through a faster process if you're an affordable developer. The first suggestion we have from the state is under 3.07.3B, which is, previously we said affordable housing developers are permitted a one-time extension request for up to 90 additional days. And then we added some language that says if necessary to allow additional time to comply with the state law or order, agency review outside the control of the city Cortez, or similar situations, additional extensions may be granted. It seems like it's permissive. You could grant as many extensions as you wanted. And the idea here is that the reason why they're asking for incentives is that what happens when you have a tight timeline like this, if the project isn't fully compliant, if there's a problem with it, to comply with that 90-day deadline, it says approve or deny. So it comes up with a recommendation for denial if they weren't ready at the end of 90 days. So that's why extensions are important here and often wanted by the developer. All right, so to earn the incentives and then go over what they are, that's the most important part here. There's a couple of definitions here on the levels and amounts of affordable housing. The first one we have there, it's A, option 1, says at least 80% of the gross floor area of the proposed development shall be residential uses. The reason to say that is, for example, if someone had a commercial, all right, let's go with one, say Family Dollar came in. They wanted to speed through the processing. They were going to add 2 affordable units up above. You want to make sure that they're not getting the incentive when really it's not an affordable project. It's really an afterthought for the development. So that's why that provision's in there. Where was I? The other one is basically the definitions of what's an affordable development. So if it's for sale, they need to be affordable to houses earning no more than 100% of the area median income by household size, while spending not more than 30% of their income on housing expenses. And then if they're rental units, the rental rate must be affordable to households earning no more than 60% of the area median income. For the county, again, not more than 30% of their income. The next restriction is one that we've had in our code, which is the sales price and rental rate limits shall be binding upon the units for a period of at least 20 years. The state is recommending we delete that. And their reasoning is that, there might be a development that needs or is proposing a 15-year limit on how long the units are affordable, and the city might think that's a good idea and it's compliant with statute. So they are recommending that we eliminate that, but again, it's up to you. They're saying we don't have to, but they're recommending it. So think that through. It then goes on, the draft goes on through some other restrictions. And then there's another way to qualify, which is if you're a LIHTC development or otherwise got funding for affordable housing, you're sort of an automatic in. And then the important part is under 3.075, which are the incentives that would be awarded, which number 1, of course, would be the expedited review and processing with the 90-day limits. Number two, we decided to add a little bit more carrots in here, which is if the project includes no more than 16 dwelling units, and that's a number we're looking for direction on, it could be approved at an administrative level. Right now, the code limits that to 4-unit development, so 4 units can go administratively. This would bump it up with an affordable housing development up to 16 units. I think if that feels right to you, there are some good reasons to allow affordable housing more of an administrative review. In part because those of you that were here, or any of you here, when the Housing Solutions for the Southwest came through, so it was a 4-unit development, fully compliant with the code. Really, there was no reason why you could say no, no legal reason. It met all the provisions of the code. But it's up in front of the public, you're notifying the neighbors, and a few of them will show up and say, well, we don't want affordable housing in our neighborhood or an affordable project in our neighborhood, even though they may very well qualify for it given some of these income limits. So to some degree, it seems not quite honest to say, hey, come on in, public, tell us what you think about this development, when really the answer is pretty much going to be it's approved. So bumping up that limit makes some sense, but it's up to you. Certainly not, it's maybe one of the things the state might recommend, but it's not required. So think that one through before you vote. We've got the 90 days in there, and then the third incentive is the next incentive is what's already in our code, which is a density bonus for up to 20% for affordable projects. So anyway, this new incentive section sort of brings all that nicely into one section. And staff at this point is recommending that you review these revisions, listen to any public comment, although I don't see any public here, and give us your feedback. If it looks good to you, we have a possible recommendation there and a revised Exhibit A to the resolution that includes the changes the state recommended. I can take those back out or make any other changes you see appropriate after discussion here tonight.
Does any member of the commission have a question for staff?
Lot here, come on.
So Nancy, I don't have a question on the changes that you made, but while I was perusing through, I know how to find the median income for the county, but not everyone that we deal with on a affordable housing level may know how to do that. And when you figure, I guess the annual income is 63,000, and so 60% of that is 37,800, and that is an income of $18.90 an hour, based on what the IRS would consider a work year. Is there a way we can put something in there that shows a formula or a place to find this information? Because I'm sure you get a lot of questions or people or applications or applicants who may not understand or know that part of it.
I think that's a great idea. We could make a reference in the definition to where to find that. I certainly don't want to put it in because it changes every year.
Absolutely.
So I think we could add that. I do think, however, that anyone proposing an affordable is going to know where to find those. And of course, staff would help find those. Jason has, if anyone else wants to see the numbers, we have the chart. Well, it's not coming up, but we could pull up that chart so that you could see it, but Richard just gave a great review. It is based on household size, so for example, the numbers Richard was just going over are probably for a one-person household, and then the numbers go up if you have more than one person in your household.
That's all I have.
Any other questions from the commission?
Yes. For that unit dwelling, you said it's currently 4?
Yes,
For
for an admin review.
I honestly would be comfortable leaving it at 4. I understand the controversy of like making it public or known to the neighborhoods around there, but as somebody who lived in town myself, a homeowner, I would also be concerned as well, and I would like to know that information before somebody builds a 16 dwelling unit next to my home. I think 4 is reasonable and understandable. I think 16 is kind of a party at that point. That's what I would have
Any other-
concern about.
Is
other
there a
question?
way to restrict the density, whether, like my fellow colleague is talking about the number 4, can we increase that, like in the central business district and limit it to a certain area, or does it have to be for the whole city?
That's a creative way to look at it. You could say, right now, I think it references which zones anyway. Well, that's for the density.
Because I'd feel comfortable having a high density in the, on the main highway, in the business district, but definitely not in a residential neighborhood. I wouldn't want a giant complex.
Well, they're gonna have to meet the density restrictions that everyone else meets, but they get a bump of 20%. The 16 unit development, it would have to meet the density restrictions in the zone. It's just whether or not it comes in front of you or stops with city staff. Do you see what I mean?
I definitely want to build, I'd like to have, different standards for, the main highway as opposed to the residential areas. That's my
Okay.
opinion.
Yeah, but just to clarify, these edits do not deal with density. That's a zoning issue, and we're not proposing to amend the zoning code. All this number is defining at what level the review can be administrative only, as opposed to having to go to planning commission and city council. So the idea being, right now it's 4. If it's 4 or less, it doesn't come before you.
Gotcha.
If you set the number higher, 16 was what Nancy had inserted, but there's no hard and fast rule to that. You may decide, again, 4 is appropriate, or you might decide 8 or 6 or 20. So it's obviously the larger number of units, potentially the more public interest and need for public participation in the approval process. So certainly you would probably be advised to put some limit on it, but whether that number is 4 or something higher than that is certainly what I think Nancy's asking for your input on.
Any other comments or questions from the commission?
So basically, anything under 16 would be fast-tracked and would have a much quicker review process.
Well, anything under 16 would probably be faster than 90 days because it would stop at the staff level. Anything over 16 would still have to meet the 90-day limit, but it has to go through Planning Commission and City Council. So it's a little bit more of a struggle to meet that 90 days, and it's more likely it'll hit pretty close to 90 days. It's a nice incentive, honestly, for developers. They get pretty excited, and we had one in today saying, well, I'm gonna do it this way so I don't have to go to a public meeting, just because a lot of them have been through some pretty tough public meetings.
Well, I want to see projects completed. I don't want to see a developer come and, you know, give a pipe dream of what he says he's gonna do, and then, you know, a quarter of the project is completed, and, you know, we're dealing with vacant land. Should have been developed properly.
Any other comments, questions? We'll move to the public hearing. This is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Any member of the public wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll close it. And back to the commission. We have a resolution before us, and staff is suggesting some changes to that. The chair will be looking for a motion, and of course, it's your prerogative whether to make any amendments to that resolution or adopt the resolution at all. The chair is looking for a motion.
And just to maybe help you out a little bit, in the motion, if you want to include as part of the recommendation for approval some or all of the amendments that Nancy has put before you, the red line amendments, then you can say, with the amendments suggested by staff, or with the amendments suggested by staff except for, and then identify which amendment you don't want to be part of the motion for approval. And certainly the two changes that the state recommended that Nancy included would be two of them that you want to consider. And then also it sounds like whether you want to stick with 4 or go to some other number. 16 was suggested by staff, but that's certainly, whoever's making the motion may have a different opinion. So if you want to include a different number, then by all means make sure that's stated in the motion.
And if I can help you out, from what I heard from 2 people, so tell me whether you agree with this. I'll have to play with the wording a little bit, but under 2A, which is the definition of affordable housing for sale, where it references the area median income for Montezuma County, I'll add a phrase that says as determined by DOLA and, or CHAFA, yeah. So I'll,
is the Colorado Housing Authority.
so I'll add that to both A and B definitions, and then the other one, I don't know whether you've decided or not on. We could do on the expedited review under A1, we could say if the project is located in the C commercial or CBD, central business district, and includes no more than 16 dwelling units, a final review does, etc. So that would exclude it from the residential districts and neighborhood business. I don't know what you guys think about neighborhood business. We could add that in or not.
Thank you, Nancy. So we're looking for a motion. somebody can craft some language to incorporate in that.
I don't know if this would suffice, but, help me out here, okay? I make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve Resolution Number 9, Series 2025, a resolution recommending the council approve the proposed revision to the land use code as stated in the resolution with the amendment suggested by staff with the exception of 3.07.5A1 of no more than 4 dwelling unit.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
And just to be clear, we're going to pass the motion that strikes out number 3, the sales price and rental rate limits in subsection 2 shall be binding
Yes.
upon the unit for a period of at least 20 years. That will be deleted.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Or call the question?
None.
Call the question.
Tao,
Yes.
Fryhofer,
Yes.
Borchini,
Aye.
Bright.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're gonna have this in front of the city council on,
The 28th.
28th. Any public listening to this will be before the council on the 28th. Number 5 on the agenda, there's unfinished business. There's no unfinished business. Number 6, there's no new business on the agenda. Number 7, other items of business. A draft stormwater master plan presented by the Interim Public Works and General Service Director, Casey Simpson. Welcome, Casey.
Good evening, Commission. Casey Simpson here, first time attendee, long time listener, whatever they say. I've got Ty Copenhaver here with Jones DeMille Engineering. We have our stormwater master plan to present to you tonight. He's got a computer and an HDMI cable, and we're hoping that it hooks up and gives you some visuals for that. I think in short, they have prioritized, or his firm has prioritized a list of projects throughout the city that will benefit residents and businesses, both with smaller weather events and certainly with large critical weather events. The stormwater infrastructure, as I understand it, has not really been targeted or improved in probably 20 to 30 years significantly, and so the city's looking at what can and should be done in the next 10 to 20 years, and that's what this master plan focuses on. I'll let Ty present, and then I'll sit right here and we can answer questions as they come up after the presentation. Sound good?
Does this, yeah, this one works. All right, great. Well, thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Casey, for the introduction. My name is Ty Copenhaver. I'm the office manager here in Cortez for Jones & DeMille Engineering. We're an engineering firm. We run about 200 engineers across the western states, primarily in rural communities. It's a good niche for us. We like working with those clients. It's where I grew up in Mancus, so I love being here and being able to help on these projects. Casey provided a good introduction. This is kind of the first stab at improving stormwater infrastructure throughout the whole city. The project that we took on, it had some pretty pointed objectives for this first path. So the first one was to compile a database of your existing infrastructure. A lot of that information you guys already had available in your GIS system for us. The next objective was to evaluate all the infrastructure you have in the city for compliance with your new criteria in the land use code. And that includes hydrology and hydraulics of all those components. And also anything that drains through the city or into the city is a concern that needs to be addressed in this master plan. I talked about this a little bit, but when we look at those, we identify deficiencies and where we need to improve and hone that down into concepts. They're preliminary engineering. They're usually around a 30% design. So all the projects that you'll see on some of these maps today, they do still have to be taken through final design, through coordination with landowners to get all the way to the construction process. So this whole report is really a good planning document. It's good for budgeting, laying out where your priorities are, and making decisions on how to improve infrastructure in the city. Another objective of this was for us to facilitate input from city staff and from the public. So part of this was creating this GIS website that's a public-facing item for Public Works to use to approach the public with, and for you guys to access and quickly get the information you need, but not all the boring engineering behind all of it, which if you want to talk about it, I'd love to talk about it, but most people don't care too much. With this, I'll go through it a little bit more, but we prioritize the projects based on impacts to the area around it, anticipated impacts. So you'll see some of that as you come through this. I'll jump over here to your existing infrastructure. So a lot of this information was provided in the city's GIS system. I'll zoom in here for a second just on this intersection of Empire and 145. So you can see there's quite a bit of infrastructure going on. There's underground pipe networks, there's storm inlets, there's culverts. A lot of what's not shown here is roadside ditches, swales, things like that. But all this infrastructure goes into a stormwater model, and it looks at each individual pipe and the slope on the pipe, and does it have enough capacity for these flows that we're expecting to see based on the design criteria. A good example of this, and I'll zoom in again and just use that Empire area. So looking at city infrastructure, you can kind of see there's two big watersheds within the city. There's we called it the Hartman Canyon, but it drains a little more than Hartman Canyon. To the north of town, and then to the south of town, the majority of the city drains to McElmo Canyon. This is a really big benefit for the city of Cortez. Most communities are built like Durango on a river system or something where major flood conveyance has to go right through the middle of town. But luckily Cortez, there's kind of a line through Montezuma Avenue where it splits the city in half and everything drains away from the city. So you're not seeing, you still have major flood areas, but you're not seeing the huge drainage areas that a lot of other communities see. So this map here kind of shows you the connectivity throughout the city. So we took your existing infrastructure and we connected it based on those surface drainage features, ditches, things like that. Make sure I'm zooming in here on Empire. So it tracks the flow, and anywhere where it overtops or the pipe is surcharged and it's coming out and gonna run into the street, it's flagged as a deficiency and something that needs to be improved. We took those and put them into a project list. So this map is our project list. We've separated them by area. I'll zoom in here in a minute, but there's these red dashed lines that group the projects based on area and cost. So for example, when you zoom in on Empire, there's some pipes here along the road that are undersized for the current design storms. And those were all grouped into a project, assuming that they should be completed geographically as well as based on cost. Trying to think what else would be important for you to know about this.
May I ask a question? Are you going to
Sure.
prioritize the different projects?
Yes, sir.
Like, and so they could be incorporated in maybe an annual capital budget or?
Yes, sir. Yep, let me go there. I think that's where I'm at anyway. So we put together, this is just a draft GIS map. We're still working on some kinks here. But we put together a project summary table. So based on that project map, you'll see there's numbers associated, project 3-2, 7-1, and those are tied to maps on your existing infrastructure, so everything's uniform. This project summary table is where we've done that ranking. So you'll see there's several columns here. I don't know if I can zoom in super well. Can you guys see that okay on your screen? All right, thank you. So the project number aligns with the maps, and then each one has a name based on what street it's on or what area it's on. And then if it's in a FEMA flood zone, something that's regulated by FEMA, it's classified as a major flood project. And if it's just minor infrastructure throughout the city, not in a FEMA flood zone, it's a minor project. And those two also have different design criteria. With this table, we really tried to make it a tool for planning for public works. So this deficiency description, it's telling you what the current size is and what the issue is. And then project description is what improvement needs to be done to fix it. So there's going to be areas when you look at here that there's maybe a 15-inch culvert that needs to be an 18-inch culvert. And maybe that's one that the city chooses not to prioritize right now because it's not that undersized. So we tried to provide that to you as your benefit. We also did a project ranking 1 through 4. So 1 is a high priority project. It's one that directly impacts homes or infrastructure. 2 is one that might impact a road, but not necessarily someone's personal dwelling. 3 is getting down there pretty far. And 4, I think the only one that's 4 is non-critical infrastructure. The example would be the Carpenter Trail through that Hartman Draw area. There's a culvert there that's undersized. The risk of it overtopping, you might have to put in some new sidewalk, but it's not going to affect anyone's personal property or anyone's lives. So we've tried to provide a ranking there on what's important, as well as showing you what the deficiency is, so you can make decisions moving forward. We also cost estimated all of these projects and put those into a summary table, and we're in the process of working through that planning effort right now.
Thank you. Is there any comments from the commission, questions?
When was the last time the system was overhauled?
To my understanding, never.
Okay.
Another challenge, and I don't know, this probably isn't my place to speak to it, but the funding is also a challenge.
Yes. So this will, I think at some point before the end of the year, go in front of council as a master plan to establish a baseline, because we don't have a current stormwater master plan. And certainly it's important to recognize for the community, and for you folks specifically, would be that the funding to complete these projects in a timely manner would completely exhaust the entire street improvement fund budget in its entirety, without any improvement to streets specifically. So it's certainly a significant concern, and one that we're diligently working to find solutions to and for.
It would be kind of like eating an elephant a bite at a time.
That's a good analogy, yes. The meat would probably go bad before you got to the end.
Do we have photography of, like, when it's kind of a worst case situation where somebody goes out there and when it's really coming down, or when there's a lot of volume, so we can actually see like a photograph of some of these problem areas that you have highlighted here?
I might personally on my cell phone have pictures of, Main and Market during one of these events, because that's one example of a storm drain that doesn't function or isn't adequately sized or designed. I don't know that there is a photo cache of the overflows. I think that the benefit to the engineering work is that they can actually just model it and know without the photos what it will look like. But yeah, I mean, certainly we get correspondence from residents frequently when we have major rain events, like detailing how it's overflowing into their yard or basement or things of that nature.
It's like Bob said, we can't do everything at once, and if we have a feeling of, what's a bad situation, it might help us to understand whether either video or pictures of some of the areas, because like you said, luckily we don't have a river. I mean, for good or for bad, we don't have a river flowing through town. So, I mean, that is one benefit that, we're not, as at risk as other communities like Dolores, Mancos, Durango, where flooding, it could be a life and death situation often. Thank God we, like I said, for better or for worse, don't have that river. So, I mean,
I think you make a good point, though. It could be a good and perhaps fun public outreach project to try to collect community photos from these rain events. Certainly.
but we want to help the people in the community to deal with, flooding is a very difficult, very dangerous, very tough problem to solve. And where does all the water go? And we have a pretty flat community here, so, are there pump stations? Are there other solutions than just the basic infrastructure that we can maybe employ? Are there sensors in certain areas that can detect if there's, a higher flow, or, is there a way to divert the water? But I guess that's what this whole master plan is about, and it's important for our community, and we use the water. Water is our most valuable resource, and we need to protect it, and we need to know where it goes. We need to protect our community from the flooding. So, thank you.
I'll just include real quick, this map, all these yellow dots are major outfalls. So everything drains to a yellow dot one way or another. A lot of it's through city infrastructure to get there. But I thought that might be a helpful thing to point out there. Yes, sir.
Is this available to the public via the city's website?
Not yet. We're still in the draft phase. Part of our public outreach is this meeting, and then Casey's team is going to do some public outreach on their end as well. But the plan is to get this ready to be public facing, and it's pretty close. Just needs some cleanup items. And
I think it'd be handy for the public to be able to see this.
yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, and we tried to do our best to simplify things and point you to the information that's important as simply as possible. So if there's any questions that come up, we can supply Casey with the report, the full documentation, and he can supply it to you. Feel free to coordinate with Casey any questions you have or comments, or you can work with me as well, and we'll figure it out.
I think just to kind of simplify the greatest impacts that the public would see would likely be private landowners that have a drainage on or near their property where construction of the adequately sized storm drain culvert, et cetera, would impact some aspect of that property. Maybe they've got a driveway or a parking lot or something that has to be, ripped up, or business closed for 2 weeks to install, the pipe of a new pipe or something of that nature. So we would hope that the public would be in favor of installing adequate drainage to deal with stormwater, and that we would work to minimize the impact on the homeowner or private business should they be affected by the placement. And certainly there are businesses or homes that have been placed in areas that are at risk of flooding, And the solution to that flooding is replacement of the infrastructure to do so, yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, 7B, administrative approvals, presented by Interim Director Jason.
Yes, Commission. So at each meeting, I will present to you the administrative decisions that we've made since the previous meeting. Between August 1st and September 30th, we approved 2 minor subdivisions. I've provided those application packets and all the documentation, including my planner notes, letters to the applicants with those approvals, kind of outlining any conditions that were necessary for approval. And with that, I'll just see if you guys have any additional questions, but you do not need to make any decisions about these tonight.
Thank you, Jason. C, building permits. In the packet? Okay. I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second the motion.
I need I'm just asking for the motion. I will take a motion.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Sorry about that. Call the question? Are we good? Okay. Acclamation.
Tao,
Yes.
Borchini,
Aye.
Fryhover,
Yes.
Bright.
Yes.
Okey doke.